What the hell?
Morning! See the
Guild War?
Yeah?
think it'll be an early spring.
Didn't we do this yesterday?
I don't know what you mean.
Don't mess with me, pork chop. What day is this?
June 15th. The Guild War is next week.
Yeah. Sorry. You know, I thought it was yesterday.
Oh.
Where the hell did time go? Well, on the bright side, we just got the Astral X as well as the ULB cap for the Xeno X, so that's two little upgrades for our fire grades for the next Guild War. So let's start going over the characters and see which ones we're going to bring for the EX Plus OTKs. And let's start from the beginning. Let's start with Duel. She doesn't really bring much to the table other than a fire attack up on her 4th skill and a 15% charge attack damage cap on her ring, but hopefully she's still going to be able to deal some nice damage because of it. The second character is going to be Magisa, coming in with a hit to fire defense on Ogi as well as a Morax summon. Once Morax is summoned, she's going to be able to deal an extra nuke on Ogi, and that damage should be pretty nice. In her EMPs though, she only comes in with a crit and some skill damage cap. Ring-wise, stamina might be nice, but other than that, nothing too interesting. Moving on, Agilba comes in with an instant CA on his 3rd skill. Anila is a fantastic buffer and she might enable some comps where charge bar boost is needed. She also brings a passive boost to Odala's attack, and for her EMPs, even though she only has 1 crit, she comes in with stamina and a standard 5% damage cap. Next in the list is going to be Zera. I'm genuinely sad about the people who couldn't 5-star her, because she comes with a nice boost to charge attack specs against foes with Harvest for Mare. She's going to inflict a debuff using her 1st skill, and on her 2nd skill she also has an assassination buff, meaning 1 or 2 button presses and she's going to shred raids. EMP wise she comes in with 3 crit nodes, but sadly nothing else. Next up, another 5-star, this time it's Tien. Being a 5-star Guild War character, she comes in with a base charge attack damage cap of 2 millions, which is going to go fairly high. The Red Spider Lily effect is just a damage over time, but the boost to Odara skill damage cap might come really handy should I decide to use characters who inflict skill damage on Ogi, like Lancelot Temdane or Siegfried. As far as her EMPs go, she only has 1 crit node, no charge attack damage cap or cap ups, only a 9% from a ring. Moving on, Clarice, coming in with a 40% defense down on her 1st skill and a random skill damage nuke on Ogi. The randomness makes it a bit unreliable though. EMP wise, just 1 crit and an 11% charge attack damage cap ring. Percival doesn't really have anything interesting for OTK, so we move on to Gandagosa. This grandpa works on a stack system, and his 2nd skill is going to grant him an instant charge attack standby, as well as raising his Eternal Rage stacks to maximum. This grants him even more attack and charge attack specs. In his EMPs he's got 3 crit nodes, some fire attack, and a 7% charge attack damage cap up. So just 1 button press and he might be able to punch a hole in the EX Plus's sternum. After Gandagosa I've got Rakam, another character with ignition. He's going to buff fire attack and critical hit rate on Ogi, which might come really in handy. And his guiding firearm, other than granting somebody a full charge bar, is also going to boost that character's attack and charge attack specs. The rest of his passive will probably never come into play. As for his EMPs, 2 crit nodes, 2 skill damage cap ups, but sadly his ring roll was horrible, so he really needs something new here. Moving on, Zala Melina is just a support character, so is Aoidos, and so are Sociat and Anthuria. Summer Beatrix is an overdrive assassin, not really suited for OTK setups, and so we move on to Storm. Storm comes in with a double activation for her 1st skill on Ogi, and that 1st skill grants her a sharp boost to attack for 1 hit. This is an anytime assassin that's not going to stack with Shiva's buff, but that might still be useful in a few specific combinations, namely in a Colossus and Huanglong setup when Shiva is not available. As for her EMPs, she's got 3 crit nodes and only a 12% skill damage cap. Moving on, Grea is another character that's going to inflict massive amounts of damage with just one button. Her Ogi gets its specs enhanced against foes with Drag Force effect, and she's going to inflict that with her first skill. From her EMPs, she's also carrying a crit node, a charge attack damage cap up node, as well as an 11% charge attack damage cap up from her ring. Moving on, I've got Fro, who is a skill damage based character, not really great for OTK setups, and kind of the same goes for Samarilsa as well. Then there's Tsubasa. I've pulled him fairly recently and he comes in with a boost to all allies fire attack, as well as a second skill granting all allies a 30% boost to charge bars, as well as a boost to charge attack specs. In his EMPs we find 2 crit nodes, a charge attack damage cap up node, as well as 3 charge attack damage nodes, which can come really in handy if you're planning to go in without buffs or debuffs. Again, I had to pick these ones up for Vajra in order to actually get her to OTK the last EX Plus boss. Sadly, he didn't get any decent roll on his ring, so this one is going to need to be rerolled. Moving on, we finally land to page 2, starting with the Muses. They only carry a 15% fire attack up on Ogi and a 20% charge bar boost. Their EMPs are fairly lackluster and they don't really have anything for a ring, so back to the list we go. Next up are Lancelot and Vayne, often hailed as some of the best OTK characters. On Ogi they gain the Wise Draken effect, but that's not just the buff from their first skill, they actually recast it, also inflicting damage. EMP wise, 3 crits and some charge attack damage cap up lend a solid base for damage. I'm also kind of tempted to go pick at least 1 point in the base charge attack damage, so they can have a little bit of an easier time capping. The ring though requires some rerolls. Next in the list, Athena, coming in with a boost to all allies fire attack on Ogi, as well as a boost to charge attack specs against foes with a burn effect. The issue here is that there aren't that many characters that inflict burn on Ogi, and even though she brings that debuff on her second skill, I'm actually trying not to press that button. In her EMPs, she doesn't bring any crit nodes, just 1 charge attack damage, 1 charge attack damage cap up, and her ring got a 15% skill damage cap up. This is actually really nice for long fights, but I'm not sure I'll be using Athena for an OTK setup. Next in the list is Kallen, whose charge attack gets his specs boosted based on the Radiant Wave level. Radiant Wave raises by 1 each turn or by using her third skill, and is going to grant her a 20% boost to charge attack damage and 10% boost to charge attack damage cap on level 1. In her EMPs we also find 3 crit nodes, a charge attack damage cap up node, and she also got another 10% charge attack damage cap up from her ring. Overall, she might not be too bad as a budget option for just 1 button. Moving on, Tabina also comes in with a 40% boost to charge attack damage and 20% boost to charge attack damage cap if the foe is under the Aeana normal effect, which she's going to inflict using her first skill. That's quite the large buff for just 1 button press, overall not too bad. Sadly, her instant charge attack standby is going to have to wait 3 turns to be used, and for her EMPs, she comes in with 3 crit nodes, a nice skill damage cap up node, but no charge attack damage cap ups. Also, I didn't give her ring yet, which is something I'm going to have to remedy soon. And now we get to the juicy part, Colossus. Onogi is going to inflict unworldly fire damage to a foe, even though he can only Ogi when his charge bar is up to 200. This goes up to 7 and 7.5 million damage. He also doesn't really need any other button in order to get there, so Colossus is going to be a charge attack machine. In his EMPs he's got 2 crit nodes, 2 charge attack damage nodes, and 2 charge bar gain nodes, which are kind of required in order to help him get to 100% charge bar on turn 1 with mechanic. I went a bit above and beyond, getting 3 points each, just so I can have an easier time during normal play. Ring-wise, I managed to get an 8% charge attack damage cap on him, so I guess I'm going to leave that there for the time being. Moving on, Siegfried. Coming in with a skill activation on Ogi, which is also going to inflict a hit to stackable fire defense to a foe, as well as a self boost to attack, defense and charge attack specs. He is also going to grant other Saber Specialty allies a boost to their skill damage specs, meaning Lancelot and Vayne, for example, are going to deal a bit more damage with their own skill activation on Ogi. EMP wise, he comes in with 2 crits and a charge attack damage cap up node, and I got really lucky pulling a 15% charge attack damage cap up roll on his ring. If this is not perfection, I don't know what is. Second to last is Oasis, coming in with a 30% boost to charge bar on her third skill, as well as a sharp boost to charge attack specs as an additional effect. Too bad that in order to activate this she's going to also need to cast her first skill. 2 button presses for a little bit of charge bar and a boost to CS specs though might be a little bit too much for an OTK setup though. She might still be good for 9x90s and 95s where button mashing is not that big of an issue. In her EMPs we find 2 crit nodes, a skill damage cap up node, some enmity, and she managed to get a 10% charge attack damage cap up, which is not bad. And now the last character in the list, Summer Tina. She is a skill damage based crest character, coming in with a resistance CA on her third skill and a passive that's going to boost the charge attack specs on Orogi if the foe is both blind and burned. This is a 45% boost to charge attack damage and damage cap though, and it might as well be worth the 1 button that's going to require to cast the second skill. Too bad those debuffs only have a 90% chance of landing. Her EMPs are also kind of weird, only a single crit node, no charge attack damage nor charge attack damage cap ups, and sadly she didn't manage to get any from her ring either. If what the wiki says is true and it's actually 45% charge attack damage and damage cap from her passive, she might also still be very interesting. So, first thing first, let's see how a Magna 1 grid fares with the latest weapon upgrades. 2 buttons plus Shiva is the final setup I'm aiming for, and Siegfried and Colossus are the 2 characters that deal the most damage in here. Lyria can stay or be replaced by Lancelot and Vayne, probably. We'll see later. Well, looks like even a Magna 1 grid cannot complain here. I've run this setup a few more times and it looks like this one only has a 70% chance of making it. When it doesn't, it's because Siegfried is missing a crit and his damage plummets a little bit. The failed runs only fall short by 300k damage, which can probably be picked up by more plus marks or better EMPs. I think they're still missing some CA damage up. A due mention has to go to the summons though, because I'm using an SSR Sun, a fully uncapped Michael, as well as the Devil and Bahamut. That's a lot of stats and a lot of cap ups in there, and they're doing a lot of heavy lifting. For meme's sake I also gave Apsaras a try, but this setup requires 5 buttons to work as well as 2 summons. It's still fairly fun to see, but there's far too much clicking going on. A Chrysaor setup with a Colossus main summon can still work, but it requires 4 button presses as well as a character in second place with a self-ignition and also Tien with the 70% charge bar, so recruiting all 10 Eternals. This goes above and beyond and actually takes down the X Plus without even triggering the Chain Burst, nor the extra skill damage from MC, nor the counters from Gendagoza. It's still 4 buttons plus a summon, so I'm not too fond of the idea of using this. A bit of a faster setup is going to be provided by a Huanglong main summon with Tsubasa, Siegfried and Lancelot and Vayne. We only go down from 4 skills to 3 though, plus there's the big malus of having an all-male lineup. On the bright side, the animation speed is way faster, and it actually takes me less time to cast 3 skills on a Chrysaor setup than it takes me to cast 2 skills on the mechanic setup. The mechanic setup takes 13 seconds and 17 frames from the first skill cast until I can skip the charge attack, while the Chrysaor setup takes 13 seconds and 15 frames, despite requiring one more skill press. And as a little piece of good news, it looks like Siegfried and Lancelot and Vayne are not that far apart in terms of damage. Okay, let's move up to the XX grid and see how they compare. And Colossus blows up the EX Plus without even needing the chain burst. So it's 21.3 with no chain burst, but that damage is about 2.2 millions. Again, I've done 10 runs in here, so I can have a decent comparison pool. And it turns out that one of them actually failed, due to both MC and Lyria missing their critical hit. And these need to be compared to the previous Colossus setup. So our average damage went way higher, MC's damage went up by almost a million, Lyria's damage also went up by almost a million. Siegfried's damage only got about a 300k increase, while Colossus' damage is pretty much the same. So yeah, looks like a 4 AES grid is still going to be better than a Kane one, even at 100% HP. Now to find out if there's any way to make this grid better. And of course, for that we move on to a Cosmos Sword grid. I don't know whether to expect the damage to be higher or lower. I think it's mostly going to be the same though. Actually feels a bit higher for Siegfried. We needed the chain burst. The damage might be a bit lower, but it could also be a singular case. Because sure, it's 23.1 millions, but 2.2 millions here are from the chain burst. Once again, I've done 10 runs in here and it was all going smoothly until the last one. Those are 3 missed crits in a single run. Still, overall higher average damage, but that's because this counted the chain bursts. Otherwise, MC loses about 400k on average. Lyria also loses about 400k on average. Siegfried loses about 200k, and Colossus is the only one that gains 200k damage here. So it looks like the 4 AES, 2 EXs, 1 Baha grid actually comes out victorious here. 1 failure to 1 failure, but overall higher average damage. And this one didn't count the chain bursts either, so yeah, I think this is going to be what I'll be using for my Guild War OTKs. One thing I'm curious to see though is a little bit of an abomination. Colossus Highlander. Let's see how bad this is.
What the fuck?
21.6, but with very low damage from both MC and Lyria. I'm afraid I'm actually going to have to take this thing seriously, so let's actually do 10 runs in here. And what I thought was an unsightly abomination actually got 10 successes back to back. Average damage is actually lower than the Cosmos and a bit higher than the average damage from the 4 AES, but again we are not counting the chain burst in here. MC's damage down to 3 million loses 600k or 200k. Lyria's damage also down to 3 million, loses almost a million from the 4 AES grid and half a million from the Cosmos one. In the meantime, Siegfried's damage actually goes higher, probably thanks to the skill damage cap up to 5.87, 200k higher than the Cosmos, almost 100k higher than the 4 AES. Colossus damage goes up to 7.91. That's actually kind of crazy, gaining 300k above the Cosmos grid and 450k above the 4 AES grid. I didn't actually expect this to work. Well, it looks like it does, so I guess this is going to be my OTK setup for the next Guild War. It's plenty weird, I will probably never use this outside of the Guild War EX Plus, but yeah, if it works, I guess. So we still have like 4 days left. I guess good luck with your last minute preparations and I'll see you guys soon. Ciao!